Good morning. Welcome back to the Bout Some Football Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle. Today, I'll be covering pretty much the entire J.J. Watt situation, what's going down in Houston, what type of contract he's going to be looking at after being released, and what teams do I think he's going to end up on. Now, a little breakdown. The Texans did just release the three-time Defensive Player of the Year, defensive end J.J. Watt, a few days ago. This came after the 31-year-old J.J. Watt had asked for either Houston to find a trade partner for him or for him just to be released from the team. Now, after all that's been going on with the Houston organization, with trading DeAndre Hopkins, the entire J.J. Watt situation, the Bill O'Brien situation with him at GM, head coach, then being fired, the Deshaun Watson situation, what's going down, the failure in the AFC playoffs last year, to the Cal McNair, the owner, whole situation, and their head coach situation. They're searching for one right now. They could use a little bit of good karma, you could say. So they decided to grant J.J. Watt with a release instead of waiting to receive something in return in a trade, whether that be a late round pick or even a high round pick if someone was really that desperate in picking up somebody like J.J. Watt. The question is now, where does J.J. Watt go from here? Well, before we go into that, I want to have a little discussion on the entire Texans situation and how I think they have now shifted to like the laughing stock of the NFL. You know, it used to be the Jaguars, the Browns, the Bengals, but I think Houston has officially taken it. I think it all started last year, 24-point lead over Kansas City, completely choked that, lost by like 30 in the AFC divisional round. And then we go into the offseason where they ended up trading DeAndre Hopkins, which was very questionable. Come into this season, rough start. Lose Kansas City, lose to Baltimore. You start 1-3. So then you go fire your general manager and your head coach, Bill O'Brien, who didn't have a good relationship with any of the players, so understandable. But fired him back in week 4. Then the whole situation with Jack Easterby, I'm not too sure like what he does, but if he's even helping the situation. But I honestly don't think he is. He came from New England. He's kind of like a motivational speaker. I think he's a preacher, but like he like has like the final call in like all the situations, and Cal McNair just like looks up to him like he's like top tier. I just don't get like how he's helping. I think this was a horrible idea to have someone in this organization like that to like make all the call the shots when they have no clue what they're talking about. Then, of course, you have the new search for head coach after finishing with the 3rd overall pick. Turns out they actually don't have a 3rd overall pick because they traded 2 first-rounders and I think a 4th rounder for Laramie Tunsil from the Miami Dolphins, who was supposed to protect their quarterback of the future, Deshaun Watson, for the next 10 to 15 years. But now Deshaun Watson wants out, so throw that idea in the garbage. Then they hired David Culley as their head coach. Now, as a Ravens fan, David Culley was our wide receiver and our pass game coordinator. So I will say that he's very good at getting people behind him and supporting his like motive. Like if he wants to win, everyone else is gonna want to win because he's just a way to get players behind him. But how's it gonna work out? Not too sure. The Ravens did have the worst passing offense in the past 2 years, and it definitely won't help when looking at that and looking to grade how the David Culley hiring was. Also, he was part of Kansas City back in like 2014 when the Kansas City wide receivers didn't have a single receiving touchdown in a season. I don't think that's good. I don't know. Maybe it was his play design. Now, I want to look into what type of contract that J.J. Watt's going to pull. Now, he is one of 3 players to ever win 3 Defensive Player of the Years. He holds the top 3 places in NFL history for pressures on a quarterback in one season, 1, 2, and 3. Now, he has also totaled over 100 sacks in his NFL career, 101 to be exact. But let's look on the other side. Last season, he started all 16 games, but would only put up 2 forced fumbles, 5 sacks, and 52 total tackles. Really low numbers compared to what he has done in the past. Not exactly the production like we're expecting from J.J. Watt. He was dealing with a few injuries over the season and had 3 season-ending injuries in the past 5 years, which all resulted in season-ending surgeries. Let's check out for some comparison. Like if we want to find like a comparable contract, let's check out his like people around him. So we're going to look at a few players that also tallied up 5 sacks total this year. For stars, let's take a look at, you might not know a few of these players. Carl Granderson, who is a defensive end for the New Orleans Saints. He was an undrafted free agent in 2019. And he brought in a whopping $850,000 this year with a $5,000 signing bonus. I don't expect JJ Watt to sign that type of contract. I mean, it's not even allowed because you have to sign at least the veteran minimum. That was an undrafted free agent veteran minimum, or undrafted free agent minimum type of contract. I think it's 700,000. So maybe he got a little bit more than that. But Carl Granson, he was dealing with like a sexual assault charge last year too. So I'm not too sure what's going on there. I think it's gone now. But yeah, $850,000 contract. That's the first other 5-sack defensive end who to compare to JJ Watt. Another one is going to be Michael Brockers, now the 30-year-old vet on the Rams. Last year was a free agent, was set to sign with the Baltimore Ravens for a 3-year, $27 million contract. That's $9 million a year, which is pretty good. But was actually his physical failed, so they ended up like voiding the contract. So now he re-signed with the Rams on a 3-year, $24 million contract where he's set to make $7.5 million in the 2021 season. It's pretty good, not pretty good money. $7.5 million for 5 sacks. Yeah. Now, if I had to make an assumption, I would say if JJ Watt wants to play for a contender, which the 4 main teams that I listed are, I say he's going to end up with a contract in the range of $7 to $9.5 million a year that lasts about a year or two. I don't think he's going to go sign a 4-year, 5-year deal. I highly doubt that. I don't think any team's going to offer that with the injuries that he's been dealing with. And if he wants to go cash in on, say, an $11 to $14 million contract, he's going to want to play for someone who won't compete. But if he really wanted to do that, he would have just stayed in Houston, where he was going to make $17.5 million this year. But obviously, he's not staying there. My first team, most likely team I think he's going to end up on, is going to be the Green Bay Packers. Born and raised in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Fairly sure he grew up a Packers fan along with the rest of his family, being with his parents, TJ and Derek Watt. Now, Watt would also attend Wisconsin University, where he'd play football. And a hometown reunion definitely won't be out of the question. And I believe it's the most likely destination. Now, the deal is going to have to be pretty team-friendly, as Packers are currently sitting about $13 million over the cap. I would expect somewhere in the range of $5 to $7 million contract for J.J. Watt. But to bring it into a team that made the NFC Championship last year, I think he'll be okay with that if he wants the ring. This could also bring some extra pass rush help to the Smith brothers, who aren't actually brothers, just last names are the same, which is the most common name in America, so it's not really too surprising. It's Darius and Preston Smith. And obviously, they could also use some help up front after showing in the NFC Championship versus the Buccaneers. That if they want to get over the hump, J.J. Watt's pass rush skills could bring that to the team. They saw what the Buccaneers did to them and what the Buccaneers did to the Chiefs. I think the Packers want that. For the next team, I think the Cleveland Browns could also be a likely landing spot. This is a chance to make one of the most deadliest pass rush combos in the NFL with Myles Garrett on one side and J.J. Watt on the other. I think this would also fit under the category of looking for a team to compete in a championship soon. So you can check that off of like J.J. Watt's wish list. Browns are currently in a really good position cap-wise. It might not sound like it when I say they're only about $29 million over the cap space, but with the whole new $170 million I think it's $181 million cap space this year is what they're going to have. Their NFL is currently signing a new TV deal, which is going to show how much the cap space is going to be for each team in the NFL this year. So we'll find out once that's signed here in a few days. But they're going to have some tough free agency. The Browns-wise are going to have some tough free agency in-house options to work with, which includes up at the D-line with Larry Ogunjobi, their starting defensive tackle, is also a free agent. He's looking for a pretty big contract, probably around the same as J.J. Watt. So losing him could result in bringing in somebody like J.J. Watt to add to that pass rush. Third team I could see making a move on J.J. Watt would be the Buffalo Bills. Watt could add some veteran pass rush to this already really skilled defense. Now, bringing in Watt would only make this very deadly team even better. Possibly putting them in the AFC Championship 2 years in a row. Buffalo will have to do some work with the cap space because they're currently sitting about $3 million. They're not even over. They're under. They have about $3 million cap space, which I believe ranks 14th in the league, or 19th. 19th in the league is where they sit right now, cap space wise, with $3 million before free agency starts. Now, I think this option is kind of unlikely compared to others because you have their current defensive end, which are Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison, 31 and 33 years old, already aging veterans, and they they might not be looking into bringing in another one to take reps away from the younger players. And putting it in a perspective, Jerry Hughes put up 6 sacks and Mario Addison put up 4.5. So it's pretty much the exact same production as J.J. Watt on a much lesser contracts. They also just drafted AJ Epiosena out of Iowa, last year in the draft. So I'm sure they're looking to develop him at defensive end too in the second round. The final team that I think is going to be the least likely of the 4 I listed, but seems to be the pick by a ton of media experts and NFL experts, is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the only reason behind this is due to the fact that J.J. Watt's brothers, Derek Watt and T.J. Watt, are currently under contract with the Steelers. Pittsburgh currently sits $14 million of the cap with big-time in-house free agents like Juju Smith-Schuster and Bud Dupree looking for new contracts. I think the Steelers are more likely to re-sign their younger, promising edge rusher Bud Dupree after a season-ending injury last year than they are to bring in J.J. Watt. With that injury, they can use that kind of their advantage and kind of have a lower contract for Bud Dupree because he was looking for a big one after being franchise tagged. I think they could drop his contract down enough to where it's reasonable to re-sign him. Now, although it would be awesome to see 3 brothers on the same NFL team, I feel J.J. Watt's just a little bit too competitive to do that. So I think he'd actually probably rather compete against them, playing for someone like the Browns or the Ravens, where he has a chance to play his brothers twice a year. Just like I said, one of those teams in the last part, I have 2 other landing spots that I think are less likely than the ones I listed, so I'm not going to have a big paragraph on them. But those are going to be the Baltimore Ravens and the Dallas Cowboys. It all depends on what these 2 teams do with their in-house free agents for Baltimore. That includes players like Matthew Judon, Yannick Ngakoue, Derek Wolfe, and Tyson Bowser. For the Cowboys, I think it all depends on what the money they give to Dak Prescott. Especially after paying DeMarcus Lawrence their huge contract that he received. Now, and Robert Quinn left the Cowboys, sorry, the Bears. The last team, so those 2 teams I think are a tier down, I'd say, from that. Honestly, I'd probably put Pittsburgh in the same tier as them because I just don't think it's likely. Last team of the total of 7, I'd say, would be if J.J. Watt is solely attempting to just chase a ring and win one, that he can head down to Tampa Bay. It is unlikely that Tampa would give him a contract more than $5 million, $6 million with big-time free agents like Shaq Barrett and Levante David and Chris Godwin. So expect a really small contract, but if he wants to win a ring, Tampa Bay is the way to go. I think it's going to be interesting to see what he does for agency, but it's definitely going to be different seeing him in a uniform. It's not a Texan one, and it's going to take some time getting used to. Well, that'll do it for this episode. Expect probably the next one is going to maybe covering some other NFL free agents where I think they're going to go, or maybe the running backs in the draft. So have a good one.